A man who held more than 1,000 patents, who invented or significantly refined the phonograph, the practical incandescent light bulb, the motion picture camera, and dozens of other technologies that shaped the 20th century, who was so commercially effective at combining technical invention with industrial manufacturing and distribution that he built the world's first industrial research laboratory specifically to produce commercially usable inventions on something approaching a scheduled basis, lost control of the electrical power company he founded, the company that eventually became General Electric, specifically because his specific and deeply personal commitment to direct current electrical distribution made him unable to accept, and eventually unable to compete against, the specific technical case for alternating current that his own employee Nikola Tesla and his commercial rival George Westinghouse were simultaneously making. His name was Thomas Alva Edison. Born in 1847 in Milan, Ohio, as the last of 7 children, he demonstrated from early childhood a specific combination of intense curiosity, practical mechanical aptitude, and an unusual ability to focus on specific technical problems for extended periods, qualities that his formal schooling apparently found more disruptive than promising, since he was withdrawn from school after only a few months and educated primarily by his mother at home. He became a telegraph operator in his teenage years, a job that gave him both a technical understanding of electrical systems and a specific entrepreneurial instinct for identifying commercial opportunities in the industries those systems served. By his early 30s, Edison had established himself, through a specific series of inventions and commercially successful technology commercializations, as the most famous inventor in the United States and arguably in the world. His specific approach to invention, which he institutionalized at his Menlo Park laboratory beginning in 1876 in a form that had no significant precedent in the history of industrial technology, was not the romantic image of the solitary genius struck by sudden inspiration. It was a specific, organized, well-funded, team-based process of systematic experimentation directed specifically at technical problems that Edison had independently concluded had commercially valuable solutions available if sufficient resources were applied to finding them. The specific genius was partly technical and partly organizational. Edison's ability to select the right technical problems, assemble the right teams, and sustain the right level of experimental effort until specific working solutions were found. Morgan Housel has written that one of the most instructive and most overlooked patterns in the history of technological innovation is that the specific people who create genuinely transformative technologies are often not the same people who best navigate the transition from technical invention to commercial dominance, and that the specific personal characteristics most valuable for making the initial technical breakthrough are sometimes the same characteristics that make adapting to subsequent technical competition specifically difficult. Edison's specific situation in the late 1880s and early 1890s illustrates this pattern with a clarity that is, in retrospect, almost painful. The war of currents, the specific commercial and technical conflict between Edison's direct current electrical distribution system and the alternating current system championed by Westinghouse and technically developed in significant part by the specific Tesla who had briefly worked in Edison's own laboratories, was not primarily a technical dispute about which system was technically superior. By the late 1880s, the technical case for alternating current was sufficiently well established that most electrical engineers who examined the question without a prior commercial commitment to either system found it fairly compelling. The specific dispute was a commercial and reputational one. Edison had invested enormously in direct current infrastructure, had publicly staked his reputation on the superiority of direct current, and had built the early commercial electrical distribution system in the United States around the specific direct current architecture that his specific technical approach had produced. Benjamin Graham's investment philosophy included a specific warning about the particular danger of what might be called committed capital, capital already invested in a specific approach or infrastructure whose competitive value has been challenged by a technically superior alternative. The specific economic logic of sunk cost, which tells a rational economic actor that capital already spent is irrelevant to decisions about future allocation, is systematically overridden in actual human decision-making by the specific psychological attachment to the committed capital and to the specific approach it represents. Edison's specific response to the technical and commercial challenge of alternating current was not primarily a technical or financial analysis of the relative merits of the two systems. It was a specifically motivated defense of the system he had built and in which he had invested both capital and personal reputation. Daniel Kahneman's research into confirmation bias, the specific human tendency to seek, interpret, and remember information in ways that confirm existing beliefs and commitments rather than challenging them, applies with direct and documented relevance to Edison's specific handling of the alternating current challenge. Edison commissioned and publicized specific technical demonstrations designed to show the dangers of alternating current, including the use of alternating current for the first electric chair execution in 1890, in an explicit attempt to associate the technology with lethality in the public mind. These specific demonstration choices were not primarily the product of a dispassionate technical assessment of relative safety. They were the product of a specific motivated reasoning process in which the conclusion, that direct current was superior, was fixed, and the evidence was selected to support it. Edison's direct current infrastructure required generating stations roughly every mile to maintain adequate transmission voltage, which made it economically impractical for rural electrification and for many industrial applications that required power transmission over longer distances. Alternating current, which could be transmitted at high voltage over long distances and stepped down for local distribution through transformers, was technically far more suitable for a national electrical grid of the scale and geographic extent that the United States required. The specific commercial implications of this technical difference were not subtle or ambiguous by the early 1890s. Robert Kiyosaki's core lesson about understanding exactly where genuine, long-term, durable commercial value actually lies, as opposed to where it appears to lie based on current sunk investment and current market position, applies directly to the specific situation Edison faced. The genuine long-term commercial value in the electrical distribution industry lay in the infrastructure that would most effectively serve a national grid at industrial scale. That infrastructure was alternating current. Edison's direct current infrastructure, however technically sophisticated and commercially valuable at the specific scale it had been built, could not economically serve the larger national opportunity that alternating current specifically could. Recognizing that distinction, at the moment when it required abandoning or fundamentally restructuring the specific investment that represented the majority of Edison's commercial legacy in electrical distribution, was the specific adaptive challenge that Edison did not successfully make. Here's an honest complication worth including. The specific historical account of the War of Current sometimes emphasizes Edison's specific failures of judgment in ways that understate the genuine technical uncertainty that characterized the early period of the dispute. In the late 1880s, before the Westinghouse Company had fully demonstrated the safety and commercial viability of alternating current at industrial scale, the specific safety concerns Edison raised about high-voltage alternating current transmission were not entirely without technical foundation. The question was not whether alternating current was genuinely more dangerous at high transmission voltages, it was. The question was whether those specific dangers could be adequately managed through engineering and safety protocol development, and whether the specific economic advantages of alternating current over long-distance transmission were large enough to justify the specific development investment required to manage those dangers safely at commercial scale. George S. Clason's advice about the specific importance of continuously updating your assessment of where productive opportunity actually lies, rather than protecting past commitments that no longer represent the most productive deployment of available resources, applies here with a specific force that Edison's own example illustrates by its specific costs. Edison lost control of the company that became General Electric not because his early direct current infrastructure was without value but because his specific personal commitment to it prevented the company from making the technical transition that would have allowed it to remain competitive in the specific electrical distribution market it was trying to serve. This isn't a simple story about a brilliant inventor being wrong about one specific technical question. Edison's overall career record of technical achievement and commercial success was genuinely extraordinary. What the specific War of Currents episode illustrates is a structural challenge that is distinct from technical genius and distinct from commercial acumen, the the specific ability to recognize when a prior commitment, however genuinely valuable and however personally significant, has been superseded by a technically and commercially superior alternative, and to make the specific difficult transition that recognition requires. So here's a question worth sitting with. In your own professional or financial life, is there a specific prior commitment, an investment, a skill set, a technology, a business approach, that you have continued to defend and invest in specifically because of the prior investment it represents, even as some part of your assessment of the relevant evidence has suggested that a different approach might be more productive? Before you leave, I want to hear from you. Have you ever watched a highly capable person or organization defend a prior commitment specifically past the point where the defense was commercially rational, and did you recognize clearly at the time what was happening, or did the recognition only come in retrospect? Read a few comments before you go. Some of the most practically useful insights on this channel come from people who've answered that question honestly from their own professional experience. Next week, I'll pick one comment and send its author one of the books that inspired this channel. And if these stories help you think differently about money, you'll find a way to support future research in the description. Every contribution helps buy books, access research, and keep this content free for everyone. Remember this. Thomas Edison did not lose control of the electrical company he founded because he was less inventive than his competitors, less commercially skilled than his rivals, or less aware of the specific technical developments that were challenging his specific infrastructure investment. He lost it because the specific personal and financial commitment he had already made to one specific technical approach was large enough, and personally significant enough, that recognizing its supersession required a kind of adaptive judgment that the specific depth of the prior commitment had made genuinely and specifically difficult to exercise.